Peter Weir's 1998 masterpiece, The Truman Show, tells the story of a man unknowingly living his entire life as the subject of a reality television program surrounded by actors and artificial constructs designed to keep him contained within a fabricated world. Now, while the film serves as a brilliant satire of media manipulation and reality television, it also functions as a powerful metaphor for anyone who has experienced life within a high control religious organization, especially those who have left the Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, and Scientology. The parallels between Truman Burbank's journey to freedom and the experience of former Jehovah's Witnesses are striking and profound. Both narratives involve carefully constructed realities, the suppression of questioning, and the fear of the outside world, and the ultimate courage required to step beyond the boundaries of everything one has ever known. In The Truman Show, Sea Haven Island appears to be a perfect community where everyone knows their place and follows their assigned roles. The weather is controlled, the neighbors are actors, and every aspect of daily life serves the purpose of keeping Truman content yet contained. And similarly, the Jehovah's Witness organization creates what we often describe as an all-encompassing worldview that explains everything from personal relationships to global events through the lens of their specific theological framework. And like Sea Haven's artificial perfection, the witness community presents itself as a spiritual paradise on earth, a place of safety, truth, and moral clarity in a world portrayed as increasingly corrupt and dangerous. Members are provided with a complete social structure, regular activities, clear behavioral expectations, and answers to life's biggest questions. The organization's literature, meetings, conventions, and social gatherings create a comprehensive environment that can feel as totalizing as Truman's televised world. And the Watchdog organization, like the show's producers, maintains strict control over information flow. Just as Truman is prevented from accessing genuine news or traveling beyond these artificial boundaries, Jehovah's Witnesses are strongly discouraged from consuming worldly media, higher education, or literature that might present alternative viewpoints. The organization's publications become the primary source of information about everything from science and history to psychology and current events, creating an insular information ecosystem that reinforces the group's worldview. And one of the most poignant aspects of The Truman Show is watching Truman begin to notice inconsistencies in his world. The falling light that's supposedly a star, his father's unexpected return, the radio frequency that reveals the artificial nature of his surroundings. And when he attempts to investigate these anomalies or express desire to travel, he's met with obstacles, discouragement, and emotional manipulation designed to keep him compliant. And former Jehovah's Witnesses often describe a similar experience of noticing contradictions, failed predictions, or policies that seem inconsistent with claimed biblical principles. However, questioning doctrine or organizational decisions is strongly discouraged within the community. Doubts are often attributed to spiritual weakness, lack of faith, or dangerous influence from Satan. Members learn to suppress their questions rather than pursue them, just as Truman initially accepts the explanations offered for the strange occurrences around him. And the concept of waiting on Jehovah serves as a function similar to the show's producer, Christoph, telling Truman that he's not ready for certain experiences. Both mechanisms defer questioning by suggesting that understanding will come in time, but only through continued compliance with the system's expectations. And this creates a psychological framework where persistent doubt becomes evidence of personal failure rather than legitimate inquiry. And perhaps no element of the parallel is more striking than the deliberate cultivation of fear regarding the world beyond the controlled environment. Truman has been conditioned since childhood to fear water and travel, making it psychologically difficult for him to leave Sea Haven, even when he begins to suspect its artificial nature. The trauma of witnessing his father's apparent drowning was specifically orchestrated to create this limiting fear. And Jehovah's Witnesses are similarly taught to view the outside world as dangerous, corrupt, and under Satan's influence. Worldly people are portrayed as morally compromised, and former members are depicted as bitter apostates who have chosen darkness over light. And this creates profound anxiety about life outside the organization, making the prospect of leaving feel not just difficult, but spiritually and physically perilous. The organization's teachings about Armageddon and imminent divine destruction of all non-witnesses function like Truman's fear of the ocean. Even when members begin to question the organization, the terror of being destroyed by God for abandoning the truth can be paralyzing. The psychological conditioning runs so deep that many former members described experiencing panic attacks, nightmares, or persistent anxiety long after leaving, similar to how Truman's water phobia continues to affect him even as an adult. In Truman's world, his wife Meryl and best friend Marlon are actors, paid to maintain relationships that serve the show's narrative. While their affection may have genuine elements, their primary loyalty is to the system that employs them rather than to Truman himself. And when Truman begins to question reality, these closest relationships become sources of manipulation designed to keep him contained. The parallel here is especially painful for former Jehovah's Witnesses. The organization's shunning policy means that family members and lifelong friends are required to cut off contact with those who leave or expelled from the group. Parents may refuse to speak to their own children, and marriages may end when one spouse questions the organization's teachings. Like Truman's relationships, these bonds are revealed to be conditional upon compliance with the system's demands. This conditional love creates an additional layer of control that makes leaving extraordinarily difficult. The prospect of losing one's entire social network, family relationships, and community support system serves as a powerful deterrent to questioning or departure. Many former members describe feeling that they had to choose between their integrity and their family, a choice no one should have to make. And Truman's journey to awareness doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process of noticing inconsistencies, testing boundaries, and slowly building courage to pursue truth despite the emotional and practical obstacles. His awakening is marked by moments of clarity, punctuated by periods of doubt and regression, as when he briefly returns to his routine after confronting Meryl about their artificial marriage. And former witnesses often describe a similar awakening process. It might begin with noticing a contradiction in doctrine, researching the organization's history, or experiencing treatment that conflicts with claimed Christian principles. And this initial crack in the edifice of certainty often leads to further investigation, despite the psychological discomfort and social risks involved. The process is rarely linear. Many ex-JWs describe periods of trying to maintain faith despite growing doubts, attempting to reform the system from within, or gradually reducing involvement rather than making a clean break. And like Truman, testing his boundaries by driving in different directions or showing up unexpectedly at locations. Questioning witnesses often probe carefully, testing how much deviation is tolerated before consequences arise. The climactic moment of The Truman Show comes when Truman finally confronts his deepest fear and sails into the storm, literally breaking through the artificial wall of his constructed world. His conversation with Christoph at the edge of his reality represents the final moment of choice between comfortable illusion and uncertain freedom. And for Jehovah's Witnesses, this moment might come in various forms: writing a letter of disassociation, openly celebrating a holiday, pursuing forbidden education, or simply walking away without formal declaration. Whatever the specific catalyst, it represents the same fundamental choice between remaining in a controlled environment that provides certainty and community versus stepping into an uncertain world where they must construct their own meaning and relationships. The courage required for this step cannot be overstated. Unlike most people who gradually develop independence from their childhood family and community structures, those leaving high control religious groups or cults must often rebuild their entire social world, the value system, and sense of identity simultaneously. They face not only the practical challenges of creating new relationships and support systems, but also the psychological challenge of learning to think independently after years of deference to organizational authority. The movie ends with Truman stepping through the door into the unknown, but we don't see what comes next. This limitation of the narrative actually strengthens the parallel because the real story for both Truman and former Jehovah's Witnesses begins after the moment of liberation. Former members often describe the early period after leaving as a mixture of exhilaration and terror. The freedom to make choices without organizational oversight can be overwhelming when one lacks experience with independent decision making. And simple decisions like what to wear, what to watch, or how to spend free time can feel monumental when they're no longer prescribed by external authority. And many experience what psychologists call learned helplessness in areas where the organization previously provided structure and answers. Learning to form relationships based on mutual respect rather than shared doctrine, developing critical thinking skills that were previously discouraged, and constructing a personal moral framework without predetermined rules all require time and often professional support. The parallel extends to the discovery of how the outside world actually functions versus how it was portrayed within the controlled environment. Just as Truman would need to learn about genuine human relationships, authentic media, and real world challenges, former witnesses often express amazement at discovering that worldly people can be kind, moral, and fulfilled without their former belief system. The power of the Truman Show as a metaphor extends beyond any single religious organization to illuminate the dynamics of any system that maintains control through information manipulation, fear cultivation, and conditional relationships. The film reveals how even well intentioned authority figures can become complicit in maintaining systems that ultimately serve institutional needs rather than individual well being. And for former Jehovah's Witnesses, the movie often serves as both validation of their experience and source of hope. It demonstrates that the disorientation and fear accompanying departure from a controlled environment are normal responses to an abnormal situation. More importantly, it affirms that choosing authentic freedom over comfortable illusion is not only possible, but ultimately worthwhile, despite the challenges involved. And the film also highlights the importance of supporting those who choose to leave controlled environments. Just as Truman needed courage to step through that door, those emerging from high control religious groups need communities willing to accept them as they learn to navigate genuine freedom. Understanding their journey through the lens of the Truman Show can help former members and their allies recognize that the difficulties of transition are not personal failings but predictable responses to extraordinary circumstances. And in both narratives, the ultimate message is one of hope that human beings have an innate drive toward truth and freedom that cannot be permanently suppressed. Whether facing the artificial boundaries of Sea Haven Island or the doctrinal walls of a religious organization, individuals can find the courage to choose authenticity over security, even when the price of freedom includes losing everything they once thought they knew about their world. The door stands open. The choice, however difficult, remains possible, and life, with all its uncertainty and challenge, awaits on the other side.